To Finding Your Light Friday. I'm so excited to be here. We are going to dive into modalities, people, and providers that help you live a little brighter. And I'm so excited to have Ani Mirasol on today. We're going to talk about, she's a therapist. She works with all areas of people's lives, but one area that she specifically works on is loving yourself. And how does that express itself in how you're showing up in the world? And part of the things that she really dives into is your relationship with your body. And I think this is such an important topic. Anybody who follows me longer than a minute understands this is a big thing for me. I have a t-shirt that I wear to the gym that says fuck shame. I'm a real big like anti-shame person. And I'm just really excited to dive into this conversation with Ani today. Ani, would you give a little brief introduction to about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I very much love your fuck shame shirt. I don't know where you got that because I lead groups that I have titled fuck shame groups.
Oh, awesome.
I need the shirt when you have the first group meeting.
It's actually from a sex store here in Austin called the Q Store. That's like a all sexes positive sex store that locally owned by a really awesome woman. It's on Burnett, and they did a whole series of fuck shame shirts. That's and awesome. I just in one of the letters is their logo, and so it's like really, it's awesome. Everybody always looks at me at the gym. They're like, "Oh, aggressive."
I love me some aggressive women.
Exactly. Okay, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a sex positive therapist in Austin, Texas. And I work quite a bit at the intersections of trauma and oppression. So I work with folks who've had, often it's some sort of childhood trauma or a sexual assault later in life. And I work with those folks to both come out of the shame that a lot of folks will hold from those events, heal some of those traumas, and get back into their bodies.
Yes.
Trauma is so disconnecting, and it often makes us leave behind parts of ourselves, whether that's some magic you have or whether that's a disconnection from your body. But we have to abandon parts of ourselves in those traumatic moments. And I help people find those pieces and reintegrate them and become a whole person again and really get comfortable with what that is like to embody.
I absolutely love that. That's something we really talk about at Illuma, is that healing is actually an act of remembrance. Absolutely. That there's actually nothing wrong, that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Things have happened and you've basically disconnected from pieces of yourself, or you've gotten these lenses over your life that have kind of detached himself from your true being. And really the act of healing is, can you reintegrate all parts of yourself and love all parts of yourself, even the messy parts that a lot of times people want to hide and are have shame around. But to really feel empowered, I think you really have to own all of that, and how positive that can be, especially the hard things, trauma and shame for so long. Trauma creates shame for so long, and then you want to hide it from everybody. Shame lives in the dark. That was when I read Brene Brown, Shame Lives in the Dark. I was like, yes, madame, you are true. You are right. But then really being able to own that and not use your trauma as like something you're shy away from, but actually kind of lead with it to help you, post-traumatic growth, to move forward as something like, I am strong and I am strong because of this.
Yeah. I want to help people not just survive, but move into thriving.
Oh, yeah, completely. So I would love to hear, what are some of the first ways in which you I'm sure people come to you from all stages. Like probably some people have worked on their stuff, and maybe some people are new to it, or maybe they don't even know that it's really there. How do you work with people that maybe you're at that very beginning stages of even being able to say what happened? Because I think for so many, like, that's the big scary that's hiding in the closet, like even to utter that this happened to me.
Yes. Yeah. When someone first comes in and either they're first aware of their trauma, they just found out or just discovered memories, the first thing that I work on with them is first just safety and getting them grounded and stabilized. So a lot of folks with trauma are going to be using substances or have eating disorders or self-harm behaviors, because those are mechanisms of trying to cope with the pain of the trauma and the loss of the. So when someone first initially comes in, I'm assessing where are you at in that kind of recovery, survivor, thriver stage, work with the stage that someone is in. So the very first is all about safety, stabilization, and let's reduce harmful behaviors. Let's reduce risky behaviors in the kind of in the pursuit of health and wellness. Out of that. So what that might look like in the beginning could be something more of like a behavioral type therapy, where it may be focusing more on coping skills in the beginning, so folks know what to do when they feel flooded or overwhelmed with emotions, that they have some skills to use. And some of those are internal skills like breathing and meditation, grounding exercises, connecting to like your hand or your foot, or, just realizing, oh, wow, I have a body that I've been so disconnected from. So a lot of the beginning work is really that. I think of that as we go in, I use a house metaphor. We have to go into the land, we excavate to build we build up, drag up all the shit, and we lay down a foundation for what we want to build on. We can't put the roof on without having a foundation.
Yes. I think that's such a beautiful way to look at it, because for many of us, I've had some pretty significant traumas in my life. One that, was really hard for me to talk about for the longest time was the first time I ever had sex. I was raped by the guy that I was dating when I was 15 in a truck, and it was like this thing. And then I apologized to him for crying afterward, because I was a kid, first off, I was a baby, I was a kid, and I thought that I had done something wrong, like that it was bad, and then because of kind of the persona that I put out there, because I was kind of very sexual and I dressed a certain way, everybody assumed that that's how I was, and I really wasn't like that. And so then it was this, of course she deserved it because she put herself in this position, and then that all unpacking. And it was just so interesting. I probably didn't speak about that until I was in my 20s, because it was embarrassing. That's how it felt for me. Like, it felt like such an embarrassment. But I think because of that, or actually not think, I know because of the work I've done around that, is that took me out of my body until my 30s, really. It really, especially in the sexual realm with me, I'm super easy to dissociate in sexuality. Like, I could turn it off. I could just do it and not really be present, and that led to a lot of course, unhealthy behaviors, because I was trying to kind of fix that without fixing it. I was trying to cope with it without fixing it. And I think so many of us, find it's hard for people who've never struggled with any kind of addictive behavior to understand why people are doing that. And really, addiction is just a symptom. It is a symptom of coping. It's actually not about anything that the person is doing. It's an emotional response to them either trying to check out or feel better. And I think that's creating safety is the first place to really start with people. And I think that's beautiful.
I love that you talked on that, and I so appreciate sharing a little bit of your story. And it makes me also think about how much we have to, in that safety and stabilization, that I'm also helping people to reconnect with their values and normalize that the behaviors they were making were coping and were in response to, fucked up behavior to a fucked up situation isn't that fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
but
completely.
Really how I feel about it is, we get a lot of, like you're talking about, having shame about later sexual behaviors and in ways that you might have acted out. And I'm just like, of course you disconnected from your body. That was the smartest thing you could have ever done.
Yeah.
You were still like be in your 20s. It just, I don't know. I really like to normalize and take out the stigma of whatever behaviors someone's engaging in, because they're just
Yeah.
about survival.
Yeah, and I think that is also so important. And then to really realize that whatever coping mechanisms you use to heal yourself helped you. It was super helpful for you to get through whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will become the weight that will drag you to the bottom of the ocean if you don't figure out how to let go of it once you've gone through that process. And I think that's also a hard thing for people to really wrap around, is like, this was a coping mechanism. It was good for me. I can actually have love and acceptance for it, that thank God I had it to get me through something. And thank God I can get rid of it.
Yes, I don't have to do this forever. I don't have to live like this forever. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to. So let's kind of go through those tiers that you talked
Yeah.
about. So what would the next tier be?
So the next tier is where we start to move into more of like, what does the survivorship look like? So now you're maybe reducing behaviors, getting a little more control over that. And then we start rebuilding maybe the first and second stores of the house. So we have a solid foundation on. Now we're looking more at how does this trauma or this history or this narrative show up in your current present day life? Where is it popping up? Is it in your, it's always going to be in your relationships. Always.
Yeah.
Romantic, friendship, work, colleagues, like the trauma just always shows up there. So I'm asking about those things. I'm asking about other quality of life things. Some folks have a hard time taking care of themselves when they don't value themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm talking about practical things like, what's your house look like? What rituals do you have daily? How is your daily self-care of your body? Are you, how often are you able to shower and brush your teeth if we're in that sort of place? If it's not that place, I'm talking about more, how is your body getting tended to and loved? Are you getting some massage? Or can you do some self-touch? That's sort of the starting to reconnect with this idea that I have a body again, and it's not just a shell. So a lot of, again, getting your feet, like feeling your feet planted, feeling just your hand and getting the sensations in that. And then a lot of relationship therapy work. So this is where I might work with someone in groups, because groups are so important for reducing the shame and the isolation.
Yeah.
And get together and then they say, oh gosh, I'd never heard anybody say that the exact same way I feel it. And that bonding is so important. But the normalizing, I'm not so alone with this. I'm not broken or, beyond repair. I'm just like this other person I care about in this group.
Yes.
That's very, very helpful. So we're building more coping, building more resilience, building more relationships and connections in their life to try to expand it, because often trauma and our behaviors or our addictions shrink our life really small. It kind of takes away a lot. And so I'm looking more at starting to expand within their tolerance, their window of tolerance. So not doing too much too soon, that it's overwhelming and pushes you back, but also not staying stuck in the quicksand of the fear. Or trying to figure out your particular window of tolerance and how we can wiggle in that and how we can expand it a little bit. That's the sense.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I do think any kind of group experience is so important, especially when you're going through some kind of healing. I do think the normalizing of it, because you feel so. My other big thing that I'm involved in is the eating disorder community, and that is something that is so isolating, because you really do feel like, I mean, seriously, I felt like a crazy person. Like I felt like my body had gotten invaded by somebody else. And I would be having these arguments with myself while I'm binging and purging, and like this whole situation is happening. And then going and finally talking about it, and then having other people mirror that back to me and be like, oh my God, that is exactly how I felt. And I was like, really? Really? I'm not the only crazy person on the planet. And then, of course, in that one, it's like almost laughable, sadly laughable, when you really unpack how many people struggle with their relationship between food and body, and what that means, and how that, and on every spectrum there is, from the hyper controlled, I was in the fitness industry, people like being insane about food and workout and body and all that and being praised for it. And then, not only, I mean, like literally, like everybody thinking you're some magician while you're just like destroying yourself. And then all the way to the other side, and seeing people that I know really struggle on the other side and feeling like not only personal shame, but then this societal shame that people place on people and it's just so interesting because I'm like, it's the same thing. Like there is actually no difference except one is like weirdly acceptable for some reason and one is not because y'all are weird, because we've made this ideal of this person that doesn't exist in the world. But I just do think that the group part of it can be just so helpful for people. Also, I think when you start to get better, a lot of times in addiction, we're in a community of people that are along for the ride or participate in that. And trying to stop or do a change is hard if everyone around you is either accepting of it or participating in it or maybe is not on your path. And one of the things when you start to get better and you need to have a new circle, that's really scary for people, to not know anybody else, maybe from where they're from that gets that they're trying to get better, and wants to support that. And so having other support mechanisms that's not just a provider, but peer support can be so helpful.
Yeah, and if you have family support, that can be very helpful too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Sadly, there's some people that don't have family support, I guess, but yeah, that can definitely be hard. So, okay, so now we got our first floor, we got our second floor.
One thing that I wanted to also mention in both the building of the foundation and first and second floors is that I'm really also helping folks to clarify what is important to them, values-based work. What do you actually really care about? I know that society says you should look this way. Is that really important to you? How will that actually be valuable to you? So that was also woven in through there. I didn't want to forget.
What kind of practices I think that's a really big one for people because I think when you disconnect from yourself, you're really disconnecting from your authentic self and from your values. And I think a lot of people get they're like, I don't even know what my values are. So what are some exercises or practices that you help people with to kind of identify those?
Yeah. Acceptance and commitment therapy is a type of therapy that's really values driven and values based. So I pull techniques from that. It may start, what I usually start with is something like a values card sort. So you can find different values already pre-printed or and print those out. And this was how I learned this was the first time I did values exercises for myself was also through this in a workshop. So helping folks to kind of go through and then block off, oh, this is the most important to me. This is medium important to me. This doesn't matter to me at all. We start narrowing down from there and trying to get to like 5, no more than 10 kind of core values that we want to work around. 5, it starts to be too big. We can narrow it down to like, I really value pleasure and vacations and wellness, then we're really looking at what is that going to look like for you. So when we get to the roof, to the third tier of the work, at that point, we're just looking at like magnifying. How do we make your life? We've moved from out of just I'm surviving and this sucks to like, okay, like I've got some training wheels now. I know a little bit what I'm doing. And then I sort of think it's like, I'm ready to ride the bike on my own, Mom. Like, take the training wheels off now. Where you've got a solid foundation and solid coping skills that you can use that come to your mind that are just sort of like there on demand. That little chunk of work is you've built some new relationships with folks who are in line with your values. You're doing more, your work or your career or your hobbies are more fulfilling now and you're pursuing values and things like that. So I'm really just looking at, this is kind of the top of Maslow's hierarchy is the self-actualization, okay, so what's actually going to be in this life for me? Now that I'm not with these like dark glasses on and feeling so scared of everything, what do I actually want? And that is super fun stuff. I love every stage of this because I'm a trauma nerd, but it's super fun to be at a place where you're no longer in that horrible suffering, wanting to die place. And then we're actually figuring out, well, what do you actually want to live for? Like, what do you
Yes.
actually want to do? In that stage, a lot of trauma survivors need help feeling joy and need help feeling pleasure. And that I get so excited about. But
Yeah.
that's also sort of the sex positive, the body positive place is like reconnecting with your whole self, including your sexuality, your sensuality, your intimacy. I think all of that's so important in the healing process. So that final stage feels like, I don't know, it's like the cookie crumbles on top. Like, all right, what's this? What are we doing now? And those rituals might look more like putting in gratitude practices, or might look more like, making travel plans even. It's just kind of whatever you want that life to look like. It might look like a career change because now you're a different person than you were when you started this years ago. And so it's just really continuing to help them build the life they want to live that's in line with the values they've set, after they're a little bit more free from some of the past.
That must be so rewarding to be able to take people through that entire arc and remember, have these awarenesses with them around. Do you remember when you first came in and everything was hard? Everything was a struggle, and now we're really looking at the additive properties of like what we can add to your life as opposed to like just getting you through. That must be a beautiful process.
It brings tears to my eyes. It's such an honor. It feels really, truly, presidents at the end of their terms, it was the honor of a lifetime. And I feel that way with folks who I get to work through that whole process with. It's life changing. It's life transformation. It changes your brain. It changes your outlook. It changes your relationship.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I was just thinking, like, do you have like big buckets of people that you tend to work with? Like, I know you said kind of trauma in general, but is there like certain people that seek you out?
Yeah, my people tend to be creatives, artists, or creatives working in corporate world, like doing graphic design, and they hate the corporate world, but they're artists, and so they're like making a lot of money, but still are artists. That's a big niche of mine. And also, when I first started, I said I work with tender hearts, old souls, and creative minds.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So yeah, highly sensitive people, empaths, folks who may have unnatural experiences or unordinary experiences. And anyone who's sort of outside the box. The black sheep is also a big. If you were the black sheep of your family, like, we're gonna get one. Yeah, I have some experience.
I'm your lady. That's great, because I was just having this conversation this morning about how hard that is for creatives. My dad's an artist. And so my dad's been an artist my whole life. But you got to make money at some point. And so he's also a woodworker. And so now it's this interesting thing because, of course, you need to bend your art to sell it. But at the same time, he really just wants to make whatever he wants, and he wants people to love it and buy it. So it's always been a struggle for him, and I think it's less now because it's less money driven because he just is retired and he does what he wants. But it's this really interesting. I think it's always been this intrinsic struggle within him. And also like wanting to be, in an art magazine artist and like accepted by the elitist, but hates them.
Oh my God.
He wants to be able to hate them while they praise him and put him in a magazine. And I just think he's just such a joy, but it's just this continuously funny interaction with him. He's like, yeah, these people wanted to buy this thing, but I made what I want, but they didn't really like it. And I was like, well, Dad, they gave you money to build the thing that you told.
They sort of told you what they wanted.
But I guess it's your business. That's really fun. What do you think are some things that pretty much all of us could be doing daily or weekly to really help us, probably reconnect with ourselves on a deeper level? Because I think that's something that all of us could use practice on, because especially I think today it's so easy to disconnect that finding mindful time to kind of reconnect with yourself is important.
Yeah. Yep. That would be number one. Find some mindful time.
Schedule.
Thank you, Allie. But really, whatever that looks like, for some folks, that looks like spending time out in nature and making sure that you get some cell phone free or technology free time. For other people, that might look like making time to journal or write daily. For other people, it may be a sitting meditation or a walking meditation. It may be listening to affirmations, but scheduling some time each day. It doesn't even have to be more than 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you can really do.
Yeah, 2 minutes at this point. Start small.
I'm talking to people where they're like, I have no time. I'm like, okay, when you're on the toilet, then I want you to do these affirmations, because that's the time that you're just sitting there. And if you're scrolling on your phone, put it away. So you can find a minute or two in your day to practice some of these things. I think along with that, making sure that this is going back to the values, making sure that you do know your values. If you've never really sat and thought about that, or if you're listening to this and you're like, oh God, I don't know. Spend some time with yourself, sort of really thinking through, what do I value right now? What's important to me right now? What's important for this month, this year, the next 5 years? But getting clearer for yourself is really helpful. And then the final one I think that I really encourage all folks to do is some sort of gratitude or self-compassion exercises, activities that can be something as small as, holding your hand over your heart and repeating a few mantras or affirmations. That could look like doing some written exercises where you write a letter to your past self, or you write a letter to your inner child, or write a future letter to yourself. I like some of these. And I say writing because I like to write. That's my preferred form. But it doesn't have to be writing. Make some art. Build some shit. Like, do whatever really fuels you.
Completely.
Having that time set aside that you schedule for yourself is so important.
I love that. I love that you open that, because that's the one thing I think it's so hard, because people, of course, there's a million different ways, that I would call this kind of personal integration work. It's like yours can look however you want. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, that's the whole thing. And they're like, well, people said I needed to meditate. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you wanna.
Exactly.
I think meditation is a beautiful practice, but I don't think it's for everyone. Just like anything's not for everyone. But I do love that you give people such a wide breadth, because I think a lot of times when people try something and it doesn't work, and it's something that, or in their mind it doesn't work, and it's something that everybody says this is what you need to do in order to get better, then again it leads to that shame cycle of, well, there's something wrong with me. I didn't do it right.
Right. I'm a bad meditator. I'm like, no, you're not. You can't really be bad at it. It can be bad for you, but I don't know that you can be bad at it.
Yeah. I think meditation is just one of those things. It's a challenge no matter who you are. I would love to know a good meditator. I'm not even sure the meditators I know are good meditators.
I also really encourage folks to find some way to be in their body. Most indigenous cultures, if you went to a healer or their shaman, they would ask you, when did you stop dancing and when did you stop singing? We're so, talking again about coming home to your body, our culture is so disconnected from a body. We're walking heads where we don't want to have feelings like, oh, I don't know what's going on down there. But just really reconnecting with some sort of movement that feels good to you. If that's laying on your back and wiggling your hands and feet in the air, if that's stretching, if that's walking, if that's dancing, awesome. If that's Tai Chi, but just some way that and this is not about weight loss or Diet culture, this is about energetically moving shit through your body. Move the energy out, up, down, in, out, somewhere, but just get some of that moving in any kind of way you can. And some days that just looks like breathing deeply. And other days that looks like dancing around and being silly and having fun. It's just a part of it.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I have a good friend that works with women, and she does primal screaming and primal movement. And I gotta say, like, I am really like, I don't really care what people think. But the first time, first time she was like, roll around and growl, and I was like,
What?
What are we doing? But it actually was very helpful. I mean, really, if you can just let your shit go for a second and like really, she's like, listen, this is what we've done for tens of thousands of years. We are animals. You have to remember that all this stuff that is coming up in your head during this is just programming. It has nothing to do with reality. And we're trying to make this mean something. And really, we're just using these amazing vessels that we got. So, like, use them.
Yes.
You know, be weird.
Be a weirdo. Let your freak flag fly.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Do you have anything coming up that you're working on, or?
I do. I have one of my fuck shame groups is going to be starting their 8-week sessions. So my next one starts on Wednesday, March 31st.
Nice.
Just finished the first cohort, and I've got the second cohort. We're right in the middle, so we'll be starting the third group. And there's an option after that. Those are just 8 weeks to get folks sort of interested to group work. And then for anyone who really likes it and wants to continue, I have ongoing groups that folks can come into and work on their interpersonal relationships or work on their social anxiety, you know, any of that. My practice right now is full for individuals. So the only the only offerings I have right now are groups.
Okay. How are those groups outlined or set up? Like how does that work?
Yeah. There's about 6 to 10 people usually, a little more than that. So they keep them smaller. And it's a lot of, we'll start usually with some sort of general check-in about where folks are, how they're feeling in their body, how they're feeling in their mind and heart and soul. And then we move into, if there's something that comes up during that check-in, I really follow the lead of where folks are that day. So I don't come in with my own pre-designed curriculum or script or we're going to do this each day. I really I work more intuitively and sit with folks as they're checking in and see what are the themes I'm hearing today, what, you know, where are folks, and we might take it that way. And then just things go organically where they need to go. I really trust in that process. So it may be that I might be doing some teaching if folks have some questions, or mostly I like to keep the group interacting with each other because that's the interpersonal work. So mostly I'm working more on helping folks connect with others. What are they relating to, and putting voice to that.
Oh, that's beautiful. So is it a weekly group?
Yes. Weekly. Yeah, meets weekly for 8 weeks. It's 75 minutes. And I offer it on a sliding scale between 40 to 80 a session.
Beautiful.
So that can allow for some variety of folks. I try to make sure my groups are diverse in race and class and gender, sexuality.
Beautiful. And is that, I'm guessing that's still online?
Yeah, it's still online.
We're almost, I have my fingers crossed that by the end of the summer, we're going to see people again.
I think so. I'm crossing my fingers for that too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you have any final thoughts or anything to share?
My final words are always fuck shame. Don't let shame hold you down.
Yes.
And do you really, you know, find your freak flag inside, bring it out. If you need help, let us help you. But I just love people being themselves and being authentic and being just in their power.
Yes.
Those are my final words. Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree. I'm a huge proponent of everybody being fully expressed of who they are. I think that is how we get the world in a better place.
Absolutely.
So, Ani, I really love this conversation. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your time today. And I'll link to all your stuff under the video so anybody can reach out to you and hopefully join those groups. And I'll find you that t-shirt.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That'll be my first day of group shirt.
Yes. All right. Well, thank y'all so much. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next